a lot of times your offer is good enough and you know who you're talking to, but business just feels stuck and it sucks because there's only so many things that you could blame in the business. And a lot of the times, if you're stuck, that thing becomes you. So I want to show you how I'm auditing this business and how we're going to get her out of this rut and continue to grow. Because the most important thing, once you have your offer and your audience dialed in, is leverage. So I think of leverage this way. Last month, I traveled to Franklin, Tennessee for a mastermind, and I had my toothpaste, I had floss, but I forgot my toothbrush. So how am I going to brush my teeth without a toothbrush? Well, what I did is the first night I put it on my finger and I tried to brush my teeth like that, but it wasn't the same because having the handle, having the bristles, that literally gives you so much leverage to do a lot more effectively. Because if I'm just using my finger, I really have to rub hard. I have to get in there. I can't even do as good of a job with a finger compared to with a toothbrush. And it's the same thing in your business, that if you have your offer dialed in and your audience dialed in, but you're still like manually reaching out to everyone, writing and speaking and doing sales calls, and it almost feels like this hand-to-hand process for making sales in your business, that's going to drain on you. And that it might or might not be sustainable, but it's definitely taking your time and energy away from growing the business bigger than it is now. So let's go into this. We have ideal clients that are professionals. Basically, the idea is that they can't work for extended periods of time without distraction. So this offer is really about having life outside of work and still being comfortable financially, just really fighting a lot of the stress and doing all the stuff. She's posting on Substack, doing podcast guesting, and building a network, getting known as a concentration coach, which is excellent. And it still might be a little bit new. She's iterating with her offer and she's getting feedback, which is great. So she helps people train their brains to sharpen their concentration and help them decide on what deserves their concentration. So you ready for this? Let's go to the audit. So again, we're breaking down the audience, offer, and economics. Now her audience clarity is pretty good. It's 3 out of 5, which means it's good enough to not be stopping her right now. It's not the constraint. And what we're looking for here is just the one thing she can do to grow her business past its current stage. And it's not the audience, because she knows exactly who she's helping and she knows exactly where to find them. Hey, that's great, we got balloons. And she's active, so this is good. The offer is even better than the audience. So it's definitely not the constraint. There's a dual offer here for brain training and coaching. She's positioned very well with her frameworks and her concepts. So that's all great. And it stands above a lot of the generic productivity advice or mindset coaching because there's some specificity behind it. And this is a lot of times something that holds coaches back because they focus on a generic outcome and they're not very specific with either the outcome or the mechanism or the constraint that they're addressing. But she covers all of that. Like, here's the outcome that we're getting to help you concentrate and decide on what to concentrate in 15 to 30 minutes a day, which is great. Now, the problem is the pricing can be a little high for some people that are coming in cold. We're still iterating the offer. So it works, but it might need repackaging down the line. Now, this is the bottleneck, the economics. And the way that I view economics is your business is like a factory. You're getting raw material in and you're processing it with your offer. So you're getting new people who have a problem. They're going through this offer machine and they're getting results and they're leaving your factory, and that's great. The conveyor belt that connects everything is your economics. So really, she's doing good work, but there's no reliable system for getting new people in the door and tracking what works. Because right now, each client is worth about $5,000 to her, which is great. The acquisition is 100% organic, but there's no tracking on it. And so CAC is traditionally used in paid advertising to understand your customer acquisition costs. But even if you're not using ads, you should understand the time and effort or money it takes to get a client for you. And most people don't look at this And so they lose a lot of profit in there and they overlook marketing channels that are working or low hanging fruit that maybe they've come across by accident because they don't have this tracking. And a lot of the times everything's sporadic and everything takes effort, which is what's going to happen at first. So this is totally normal. But what we want to do is if we're doing all of this motion, testing different channels, testing different hooks, testing different offers, we want to have some sort of tracking on it so we can iterate and go through these flywheel loops faster and faster to know once we have, this input, we can get this output and make that consistent. Okay. So here's where we go a little bit deeper into this constraint because the idea now is growth is built on referrals from therapists and past clients. There's a small growing podcast guesting presence and a few people on Substack. And these work, but there's no way to turn it up and have control over it. And there's no way to even inform decisions. So it's not a bad strategy per se to just say, hey, I'm going to continue podcast guesting or I'm going to continue posting on Substack and I'm going to continue getting referrals and the business grows how it grows and that's fine. But you can have better data because over the course of a year, if you're on a podcast a week, that's 52 shows, the majority of your leads and your clients and your results are going to come from a subset of those podcasts. So 5 to 10 of those podcasts are going to drive all those results. So we're not starting off here. We need a little bit of support here. So the idea is, again, we don't need to be doing a lot of random stuff. I would double down on one channel and dig deep with it. So even with podcast guesting, if you're on a show once a month or once a week, that's good. But there's more that you can do. You can go through other people who have been on that podcast and reach out to them. You can network more deeply with the host of the podcast to maybe do a joint venture or something with that person to speak to their audience, not just on the podcast, but like a paid client audience or something like that to help them with their concentration. There's a lot more juice to squeeze that you can dial in here instead of spending, half of your energy on Substack or talking with other therapists. Like doubling down on one method could be very helpful. Just as an example, right? And I think podcast guesting is good because of these reasons. It's aligned to what your audience likes. So you're reaching new people at scale. It lends itself to more trust, better conversations, and it's already working. The only thing here is when you have a content-based way of getting leads and you're putting that out, I would set a frequency to it. So the best success I've had is not saying, hey, I'm going to go on YouTube or I'm going to write an email newsletter, but saying, hey, I'm going to do 3 emails a week and 1 YouTube video a week. And so if you can set that frequency for yourself and do that and commit to it for a year or whatever, that's going to be your leading indicator of success. Because yes, you want to track CAC generally from podcasting compared to Substack, compared to referrals to see what you can double down on as your most profitable channel that also brings you the best customers. But at the same time, if you are looking at this within podcast guesting, it's going to be tough to say, okay, I did 100 shows. I know 20 of them are going to bring in maybe 80% of my results, but you don't know which 20. So you're going to have to still do those 100 shows to see any patterns that emerge and see what happens. So I would track stuff to make sure that you understand and you're moving effectively through how you're finding shows, how you're applying to them, what the outcomes are from the shows, because that helps you change your lead magnet from the show. It may help show you what shows to apply on as well, because maybe as a concentration coach, if you're speaking to a leadership podcast, maybe you get more clients from that compared to more entrepreneurial startup shows compared to more lifestyle balance type shows. So that would be something to look at and to analyze as well. And I wouldn't go crazy in this. I like spreadsheets, but I would just keep an awareness of this. So it's okay. It takes me 5 hours a week to research and apply and guest on one show a week. It's great. I have a sheet of, okay, this show had this size audience and I got these results from it. And this was good. This was bad. This is what I would repeat and go on from there. And then just in terms of the podcast guesting funnel. I know you're doing a lot of this already, but I think it makes sense to focus on your authority for a lot of the hook because that builds a lot of trust and a lot of interest as well. Because this is something that people don't put together. They view Montessori for kids. I would target a certain number of podcasts per week. 10 might be too much. I think you could do at least one new podcast a week and then focus on your CTA on the podcast to get people to go to your Substack or landing page. I view marketing as a series of fences and ladders. So you're already having people listen to you on a podcast, right? That's one fence, but it's a very weak fence. You can't follow up with those people. You don't have their data. You don't have them in your audience. They're just listening to you. So you give them a ladder that can be to a concentration audit or a checklist on how to set up your work environment for better concentration or something that is a quick like snack that they can get results from. So easy to consume, but a lot of results from that. And then by climbing that ladder, they're entering another fence, which may be your email list, it may be your Substack, it may be, just a landing page, and you keep that ungated and you have them opt in by choice. But I would really focus on that. And then I would also test a smooth onboarding process for your 5K offer. So if someone doesn't take your 5K offer, is there almost a downsell that you can give them? Because I do think that the 5K package is valuable based on where your business is at. This may be a shiny object, and I would focus on like selling this the best you can, maybe setting up different terms. So if it's 5K, is that 5K over a year or 6 months or 90 days? Like, what does that look like? And can you break it up into monthly or weekly pricing? And that'll do a lot more to make it easy for people to work with you and get you higher conversions. Or can you take this package that you're working with people and record it and then sell a focus starter with maybe part of it, or maybe just a DIY version of this 5K package. So you have a downsell for people and then they could work with you when they're ready. And I like you're already doing this, using the responses to refine messaging around the time and the financial commitment. That's what I got. That's the big bottleneck. And then 3 tactical ways to fix this, because in your business, you don't want to act like me, brushing your teeth, which are just your finger. You want to have leverage to connect your audience with your offer, because that's how you're going to grow past your current stage. And if you want to have this audit done for you, just comment audit down below and I could send that to you. And that's what I got.